I lived in St. Louis from the time I was very young. From the Lou, and I'm proud. St. Louis is a good place to be from. As soon as I graduated high school, I ran back to St. Louis. I've always felt a connection here. Randall Noldge from St. Louis, Missouri. I've been here since 1985, straight out of high school. I lived here, and I lived in St. Louis from the time I was very young, before school until junior high, and my family then had to move to Iowa for a job transfer, and I didn't really fit in Iowa. As soon as I graduated high school, I ran back to St. Louis. I've always felt a connection here. I started art school here. At about the same time I started doing live sound for bands. After about 3 months of juggling college and evenings in bars with bands, the bars and bands won out. So I dropped out of college and became a full-time roadie. I was practically disowned by my family for throwing my college away, my college education away, or my opportunity. They've since forgiven me, and they've come to terms with that, and they're quite happy that I'm doing what I love. I would follow around a local band when I was in high school and just carry guitars and load in and load out, help them out in any way I could. And I was always drawn towards the sound guy and the light guy, and what they were doing and how they were sculpting the sound and what they were doing to help create a better show. A grade school friend of mine who said, "Hey, I got a band," and I said, "I'll do sound for you." And I did sound, and then the next thing I knew, we were gigging 3 or 4 nights a week, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. We were 18 years old, and we were playing in all these bars around St. Louis, and we got a little drink tab, and we'd survive on chicken wings and free popcorn and old bartender women that would take pity on us. So it was a great time. It was good. Well, I guess about 86, I was pretty much doing sound full time. 87, I moved to California to make it big, and like a lot of bands did about that time in the hair metal days. Came back to St. Louis and broke with a girlfriend that was pregnant. St. Louis is a good place to be from. It's very comfortable here. It's very forgiving. Hooked up with another band here. They got signed, went on the road, and there was a hair metal, back in the hair metal days. They had big hair and tight pants and Marshall stacks, and it was all great. And then Nirvana happened. We know what happened then. The Marshall stacks disappeared, the tight pants disappeared, everybody went for flannels and combat boots, and the big drum kits were gone and all that stuff. By then I'd made a relationship with management companies that represented other bands, and so I stayed out on the road. I was out on the road for 10 years, doing all kinds of things, from world music to pop to rock to some old guys like Little Richard, Tony Bennett. Spent the last few years touring with the Little River Band. I didn't consciously know I was getting ready to leave the road, but a venue opened in St. Louis that appeared to be built right, and when you're on the road, that's a pretty important thing. You go into some places that this used to be an ice cream store, and we thought we'd make a concert venue out of it. It's like, well, the power's 100 feet that way, and the stage is 100 feet that way, and you load in 100 feet that way, and so I came across this venue that was just being built in St. Louis about 2000, and it was built right. I said, wow, whoever built this place has done some concerts before. They know what they're doing. It turned out I knew the owner that was building it. I started working there about 2000, and I thought, I'll be here for a couple of years. This is a good place to hang out for a couple of years, and here it is 21 years later, and I'm still there. Was out of the bike scene. I rode a bike when I was a kid, when I was younger. I was never into building bikes or anything like that, but I always had that creative thing in me that I couldn't get rid of. So I'm on the road all summer, and I'm staring out the window of a tour bus watching a guy on a motorcycle go by, and I'm thinking, man, I wish I was on that bike. That was like freedom right there. And the guy was going down the highway next to me on the motorcycle, freezing his ass off, going, how much time was on that bus? I'd go to vintage bike night and see the old vintage Harleys and Indians and stuff, and then I'd go to the Moto Europa bike night and check out the Ducatis and the fantastic European stuff. And there was always the crotch rocket guys were everywhere riding around. And I was, and then I go to a chopper show at one of the Shady Jacks or something downtown, and I enjoy each one of those cultures because I enjoy everything on two wheels. And when you start talking to Harley guys, which I'm mostly surrounded by, they're like, yeah, that Ducati's really sexy. There's nothing that sounds like a Ducati. I'm sorry, but holy crap! Or they'll look at a Honda CB750 and go, man, that was my first bike I rode on with my uncle in the 70s. There's a soft spot, with bike guys and what they remember, and find most of them anything with two wheels. But I thought, why don't we have a show that's everything? So when I started Cycle Showcase, I was like, I'm gonna include everybody. I'm gonna put everybody in here. I took great pride in the diversity when I first started doing it. The first show was in 2013. That was my goal, was to be inclusive of everything that I appreciated, of everything that I saw. That I like going to vintage bike night, and I like going to Moto Europa night and seeing this stuff. And I really didn't ask a lot of people, hey, do you think this will work? I just did it. Not really to my surprise, because the Midwest is pretty accepting, but the Harley guys show up in mass and they love it, and I get feedback from them and they say, this is a really cool show. I like the choppers, I like the dirt bikes, or the Japanese hill climbers, or whatever I've got in the show that year. In a traditional chopper town like this, I recognize that probably 75% of my audience is Harley-esque people when I do the show, but I've had zero negative feedback for including another bike or genre of cycling other than choppers or something like that. So yeah, I'm really proud of that, and proud of the area. I'm seeing other shows now that are including other styles of bikes and things. Right now, in this point of the show creation, I'm trying to find ways to push the envelope. As I roll it around in my head, it's like, what do I know? I know concerts. I've been doing that for 30-something years. How has concerts evolved? Well, concerts have turned into a spectacle, an immersive experience. Why can't I do that in the motorcycle world, in the motorcycle show world? For those that weren't at Cycle Showcase this year, we would use intelligent concert lighting, and every 15 minutes all the lights in the room would change, and we'd change color, we'd change perspective. So you could look at a motorcycle in the same position over the course of 2 hours and it would look 3 different ways. That was just kind of an idea, what could we do with this? And as I was playing around with the lighting designer when we were setting up the show, it turned out to be something that was really cool. And we've incorporated video walls in parts of the venue with random bike imagery, and kind of sets the tone and the vibe and the feel of the event. This year we did for the first time unveilings, and that was a huge success. People really dug it, and I'm going to try and do a lot more of that. We put sheets over the 8 bikes that we unveiled this year, and at 11:30 all the lights in the room went to a single point onto one of those bikes, and people started gathering around. Just people follow the light, and I grab a microphone and talk a little bit about the bike and the builder, and we do a little countdown and a drum roll, and off comes the sheet, and it's a really cool experience. And I was tickled to do it, and the guys that unveiled bikes were real happy with it, and I think they're worthy of that. When you build a bike and you devote that much time and energy, money into creating that to be able to unveil it is really cool. Now the Cycle Showcase has become kind of a creative outlet. I can stretch my wings a little bit, and I get to do it with some really talented people, some really talented builders, really talented artists. I have craftsmen in the show that come in and they create on site. It's a connection, it's an experience, and you can see how they're building or creating or what they're selling or how they're doing. That's one of my requirements, is you have to create on site. I don't want you just setting up a bunch of import biker rings and hawking those, or some shitty leather from wherever and calling it biker jackets. There's none of that. I do the Cycle Showcase for a few weeks out of the year, but the rest of the year I'm in here. Spend most of my time just staring at things. I think you talk to bike guys, they just sit back and they stare at it, and you let the bike build itself. The bike, if you stare at it and listen to it long enough, the bike will tell you what it needs, what it wants to be. Or, this is my little happy place. We've all got one of those somewhere. I've got a bike over here I'm building for a guy, and I'm not building it for him. I've done a couple bikes like that. I'm not building it for them. I'm building it with them. I've got it in my shop. It's on the lift, but I very rarely work on it without them being here, because every part of it has to fit them or has to be a part of that. I require that they are present for the whole build out. They know every nut and bolt on it and why it's there and why it was put there and what its purpose is and whatnot. But B, when it's all said and done, they always say, this is me. This fits me like a glove. This is perfect, and I like that a lot. In St. Louis, this is parked in front of every grocery store. But I rode to the smokeout, and I had a 20 deep around it because they'd never seen anything like it. We just pulled up, and this old graybeard came walking across the field, and he came walking towards our headlights, so he didn't see our taillights or license plates. He goes, "Where are you all from? What part of Missouri?" And we're like, "How'd you know we're from Missouri?" He goes, "All you Missouri guys ride them crazy fucking tall bikes." So it keeps me up at night. A gas tank is cool. An alien tank is sweet and sexy. I'd make it skinnier. It holds 1.2 gallons. Let's make it hold 0.8 gallons. Why not? Just to be, and that's sometimes much to my detriment, but that's the way my mind works. I can't turn it off. If something is cool, it can always be cooler, either in the simplistic approach of its design or the outlandishness of how far you can push it. I like to create things, and when I include bikes in the show, you don't see there won't be very many assembled bikes. There's a lot of cool panhead, knucklehead. Well, I used a knucklehead frame and a panhead oil tank and a whatever, part from this bike and apart from this bike. I appreciate the assembly of those parts, but I want to see something created. I want to see something that you've twisted with your hand. I want to see something that you haven't just bolted this cool chopper together. You've created this cool chopper. Larry was a huge influence on me. When Michael Lichter asked me to build that twisted bike, the Titty Twister, for the Lichter show in 2018, the Passion Build show. First, I was super honored, but that was always in the back of my head. What would make Larry proud? What would, if you're going to do something, it's got to be a statement, and that was certainly a statement bike. But it stops people in their tracks and make them scratch their head and rethink things. Hopefully, and maybe get a little glimpse into my mind too. I don't mind sharing that. The design was built out of form, or built out of function, I should say. Form follows function, and then it kind of runs to the extent of fashion, and then has to come back into what's usable and what works. It's fascinating to me. I like it, and I like to surround myself with those people. The pure function racers. There's nothing on here that's not to go faster or to stop faster, or the guys that are just here that's eye candy. I like all those. I can mingle in all those worlds. I grew up with a single mother, And until I was 9 years old, I thought a butter knife was a screwdriver. I didn't have a father figure, but I was a gearhead. I coveted Hot Rod magazine, any motorcycle magazine I could get my hands on. I had stacks and stacks of them, and I would read them voraciously. My mom was in fashion. She was in the fashion world. Maybe that's where I got the art thing from, but I wanted to know about 871 superchargers and posi rear ends and dual throat Weber carbs on old shovel heads like that, you know. That's still with me. I had an uncle that lived a couple states away, and he was a gearhead-ish. He rode a motorcycle, and that was my first motorcycle ride. My grandparents lived in southern Missouri, 4 hours away, and he would put me on the bike and tie a belt around me, strap me to the sissy bar, and we'd go down there. And that was the coolest thing in the world. I thought he was the outlaw, crazy biker guy, and he was a hairdresser. You know, that was as close as growing up, as close as I had to garage culture. And you know, it was always, someday, man, I'm gonna have a garage. I'm gonna have tools, and I'm gonna learn how to do these things. Some of it was like, thankfully, you can learn a bunch of stuff on the internet now. You can learn things, and but more as I've gotten older and I've built a garage and built my sanctuary and my safe place here. I surround myself with really talented people. I have amazing friends that are welders, painters, motor guys, people that do motor work, and I'm a sponge. I try to soak up what I can. I can stick two pieces of metal together and they'll go down the road, but if I want something really gorgeous, I'd go to my friend and say, hey, give me the, you know, don't drink any coffee this morning, give me that pretty weld, give me right. And I think it was Steven Spielberg. They said, they asked Steven Spielberg, how do you keep coming out with hit movie after hit movie after hit movie? What's your secret? You know, he says, I just hire my friends. They're the most talented people I know, and we get together and we make movies and we have a great time. And that's what kind of the garage is for me. I have friends come over, we make cool stuff, we laugh, we listen to really loud music and dip into the refrigerator and tell lies, and it's a great time. This is my little happy place. I'll say it, I'm a hoarder of sorts, but I filled it up with memories and eye candy, and people walk in here and they start looking around, and then stories start coming, and people start telling stories, and oh, I remember this. Is that Evel Knievel signature over there? And then we'll start on Evel Knievel stories or whatever, you know. At the showcase, we can keep going back to this. Each bike sits on a riser or a platform, and I get it up off the ground a couple feet, so you don't have to kneel down on the floor to look at it. We get it up at eye level, and then underneath each bike, I put a piece of paper that I have a talented lady come in, and she writes with wonderful handwriting what makes that bike special and what makes that bike unique. Why was it included in the show? So when kids or people that aren't bike people, I guess you'd say, come to the show, they don't feel alienated, they don't feel dumb. They can look at a bike and go, oh, well, this was a BMW from 1942, and it was the first shaft drive motorcycle. There's no chain on it. Oh, isn't that interesting? Or something like that. And that's hypothetical, but you know. Once I quit the road and I settled down, I guess you'd say 20 years ago, then I actually had the means to get into the garage where I was wanting to be. And I'd become mechanically proficient, I guess you'd say. I was toying with hot rods my whole life and whatever. From the time I was 16, I had my first car was a hot rod, and I always had one. I got into motorcycles because I could fit 8 of them in a garage versus one car. So I could have more toys. I always loved bikes, but I was like, holy crap, I can get 8 bikes in here. I built this garage here. It was the largest that the city would let me build on my lot. So I built it as big as I could and stuff as much stuff in as I could, yeah, and you know, I have talent. Like I said, I have talented people come over, and I soak up as much from them as I can, and now I'm finding I'm showing other people some of the things I've learned. The first few weeks, months, you're out on the road for any tour. It's always a new and learning process, and then you get into the groove, and then you get into this dark place, or at least I did. And I talked to a lot of road guys that do the same thing. There's this dark place where it's not your time anymore. If you're on the road, you're on the road, you're on call 24 hours a day. You're not living on your own terms. Little things start making you angry, start making you mad. Somebody walking too slow in front of you at the grocery stores. Move your ass. You kind of, you know, you get like that. And you shouldn't be like that. When I decided to quit the road, that was a big weight off my heart. You know, I can relax and slow down, and I can work and then come home and not be at work. I'm not on call 24 hours a day. You know, when you're on the road, either you're doing a show, or you're traveling to a show, or you're trying to sleep to rest up because you've just done 3 shows in a row and you've got 6 hours sleep in the last 3 days. Or if you have a day off, you're doing laundry or fixing gear or something. You're always on. Everybody thinks the road's glamorous, and it is. Go do it. Yeah. I was in Paris 5 times, I think, before I saw the Eiffel Tower. As you go in, do your show. You never see the outside of the place. You go from the bus to the inside of the venue. You're there 12, 14 hours. You go back out and get on a bus. Hopefully you got a shower. I was a pirate. You know, I call them road pirates. Because you're kind of a pirate. You're city to city, port to port. All the trappings that go along with rock and roll is attractive. It's fun. It's really fun at times. Sometimes too much fun. Ocean City, Maryland Police Department. When I started at the pageant, we're a venue of 2,200 people, or 2,200 capacity, and the type of acts we were doing. When I started there 21 years ago, I was familiar with about 85-90% of the names I would see on the marquee out front. And now, 21 years later, it's flipped, and I'm familiar with about 15% of the names on the marquee, and 85% of them I'm like, I have no idea who this is, but I show up for work every day, and we do a show, and sometimes I'm really pleasantly surprised at the young talent that's coming up and their songwriting ability, and sometimes I'm surprised that a management company can create something and feed it to the masses, and the masses buy it. Talking about the country music machine, that is just like churning out copy after copy after copy after copy. Once in a while you get a little surprise. You get a Chris Stapleton in there or something, and you go, okay. We shut down for 15 months during the pandemic. Live music was just ground to a halt. Did a lot of soul searching for those 15 months. This is what I've devoted my life to. Was this ever a real job? Is it a real job? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? You know, that kind of thing. I get depressed and angry, and then we started coming back, and the country shows were the first ones that came back. We started doing country shows again when the pandemic was starting to lift up, and I heard the loudest crowds I've ever heard in my life. The first half a dozen shows when the people were coming back, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs, and they're so excited and so alive. And I was like, yeah, that's where I'm supposed to be. I don't even know how it really started. We used to just ride for ice cream. In Sturgis, the plumbing supply store on Main Street sells ice cream, and we would meet there. You can't go to Sturgis and drink a bunch of whiskey and ride around. You're going to end up in the Hooskow, and they're going to take all your money. So you save the partying for when you get back to camp. But at night, you still want to close out the day with your buds. You go down on Main Street, and we found ourselves congregating at the plumbing supply store, and standing there on Main Street and licking ice cream, and watching the world go by, watching the guys. The guys drag their feet down Main Street and yell at them, "Pick up your feet!" You know, and it became a thing. And people go, "Ice cream tonight?" It's like, yeah, well, yeah. So it's been like 8-10 years we've been, hanging out on Main Street at night after all the festivities of the day are over, and eating ice cream has become a thing. And a few years back, I started incorporating it into the Cycle Showcase. I have an ice cream vendor there. People love that. It's something different that you wouldn't, I don't have a wet t-shirt contest. I've got ice cream. It makes me a little different. I'll take that. That's fine. There's plenty of wet t-shirt concerts out there. I met Dee Dee at a bar, of course. I was a purchaser and she was a seller of fine liqueur. And I hit on her. I saw this. It was Halloween. I remember this. It was Halloween. It was like 95 or 6 or something like that. And I went down to this little bar that I worked in every once in a while, and I saw this blonde bartender with the Madonna outfit with the big pointy cone bra thing, and I was like, wow. And of course, I hit on her, and she didn't give me the time of day, and I hit on her again a couple weeks later. I had no luck. And then I went out on the road, and I had another little tour, and while I was out on tour, I hurt my back. I injured my back, and when I got home off tour, I went in and had back surgery. And somewhere along the lines, I cut my hair off, and once I was able to get up and about and around after surgery, I went back to the bar with my cane and my short hair, and I hit on her again, and she said, "Yeah, I'll go out with you." And it might have been that same night. She ended up back at my place, and she saw a picture of me with long hair, as I was before, and she goes, "That's you! Holy shit!" And then the next morning, she made me the best Bloody Mary I ever had, and I wouldn't let her go. It's like, "You're stuck with me, woman." I'm probably alive because of her, because she knew me when I was a pirate, and put up with me then. She was a bit of a pirate too, I think. But it's just like in the garage. I like to build things. I get in the kitchen. I like to build food. I like to cook, and I like to feed my friends. So if I have friends over, we gravitate towards the kitchen. I'm pulling things out of the fridge. Try this, and make this, and that's just part of the process, the friendship. Having that connection with everything. That's important to me. I like it. I mean, you can have all kinds of stuff, but if you got stuff that means something to you, that has a connection. This looks pretty random up here, but there's a story behind everything that's in here. And stories are fun. Remember those singer-song back in the day when they used to write songs that told stories? Those are great. My best story. Not my best story. So it's one of my favorites. There's a trophy over here. I don't build bikes for trophies. One time after Bike Week down in Daytona, I rode over to my daughter's house, who lives in St. Petersburg, Florida. I said, let's get on the bike and go out and get a cheeseburger or something. I said, you got any like old time drive-in hot rod joints? We can go, see some hot rods or something. She sits on the fender of the Mantis here, and we take off and we go down to this little, traditional burger drive-in joint. Roller skate girls come out and serve you stuff, and we pull in, and this guy stops and he goes, "You're here for the bike show?" And I said, "Sure." And I just happened to be riding the Mantis. It's kind of a spectacle, especially in Florida, where there's not a bunch of 18 over D-rakers rolling around. Probably because it's oddity down there, but we took best of show that night, and my daughter was so proud. she was, yeah, she hugged that. I would have given that trophy to a half a dozen bikes I saw that night, but what it meant to my daughter that night. Not that I didn't appreciate it, but what it meant to her, and her being proud of Papa. That's what it was. I can't believe you got all up in my feels today. There's still hope out there. I'm an optimist, an eternal optimist for rock and roll, or for music, or for motorcycles, or for whatever. I'm Randall Noldge from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm a Dennis Kirk garage builder.